Could part of it be coaching and putting her in better positions to be able to be successful with her skill set? Maybe. But the thing is, her skill set lacks.
See what the Chicago Sky are going to do because right now the sky is falling in Chicago. All right.
They're not playing very well, and I don't think that Jewel Lloyd is not the flex that the Aces thought it would be.
Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Back at you with USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay, our WNBA check-in show, and lots of really interesting results over the past week that we're going to dive into. First up on the menu, the Chicago Sky. Really interesting situation. The Courtney Vandersloot injury, this did not appear to be a well-run organization in previous years, and now you get some injuries into the mix. For the Chicago Sky, the forecast is very cloudy and dark at the moment, CC Clay.
Not even windy there. It's just dim. I don't, the Windy City has always impressed me, and the wind is blowing south, it seems like. I don't know what's going on with that team, but I will say this, as much as I love Angel Reese, I don't know if the coach is not putting her in positions to be the most effective, or I don't know if Angel is just I don't have any words for Angel Reese to describe what is going on with her because I'm really confused. I mean, she had a whole off season to try and develop her skill set, which you thought she was because she was working with Lisa Leslie and she was played in Unrivaled and she seemed to be improving. Could part of it be coaching and putting her in better positions to be able to be successful with her skill set? Maybe. But the thing is, her skill set lacks. It is what it is. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or hate because I love Angel. I love what she represents for Black women in America. I really do. But as far as her game, I'm just really confused. And part of it, she's 6'3". She's not as tall as the other post in the league, and she's trying to play a post position. And so here you have again somebody 6'3", trying to play with 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". And, if she doesn't get her mid range or that elbow shot developed, she's not gonna to me, it's not gonna benefit her or Chicago. I'll put it like that.
So here, basic basketball history, for the younger fans. And if you think that anyone's trying to hate on Angel Reese for saying that her game is limited, like Cece's hardly the only person to say her game needs work. But basic basketball history, there's someone who early in his NBA career did not have a good jump shot. And he had to work very long and very hard at developing a reliable jump shot, which in turn made his dribble drive ability and his passing skills become that much more productive. That person's name, Magic Johnson.
I was
He
gonna
did
say
not
that was
have a good
magic.
jumper. He did
Yeah.
not have a good jumper at the very start. And Pat Riley and Jerry West and the Lakers brass said, you need to nail this down. It was not good. You need to work at this. And he did. He becomes arguably the greatest point guard of all time. So if there are any Angel Reese hate fans out there, I should say, and who think that people are quick to hate on Angel, no, it's just you need a jumper. You need to develop
Yeah.
that part of your game.
Yeah.
It's just out there. It's just an obvious thing. It's not hating. It's just you need to be better at this thing. That's for any athlete. If you want to be great, if you want to be the best, you have to work on your weaknesses and develop a more complete game. It really is that simple, right, Cece?
And I think, with Tyler Marsh as the coach there, people are, me, I'm not quick to talk about coaches in a negative light per se. Tyler Marsh is new. He's trying to figure it out. Do I think he's a good coach for Angel? I do because he coached Asia. So he has to know how to develop post play effectively in some sense. Could it be his offensive system? Maybe, because it seems like that when they're in their offensive sets, they're kind of all over the place. And it just seems like their players aren't putting each other in positions to win a game. I mean, their assist counts are down as a team. So that tells me they're not passing the ball or playing together as a team. Their efficiency is lacking. And Angel can't just keep throwing the ball up and getting her own rebounds and be the number one rebounder in the game because she's missing her own shots. And so, either the coach has got to figure out a system that's gonna work, because you can't it's like, some companies they like to take, I'm talking companies outside of basketball, they like to take other companies and say, hey, if you want to do business with us, you got to fit in this box. And then you have other companies that will customize boxes to make that company more effective for both parties. And I think you see a little bit of this happening with Chicago is, he brought his system in. He thought his system might be the best system. And I think that you have to fix that system in order to achieve better. And now with Vandersloot being out, they're in a world of hurt. That Windy City is not even, that wind's gonna blow south and then probably over into another country, without Courtney Vandersloot. That wind is forming a tornado outside of Chicago right now.
And this, what you said about the coaching situation, it brings up the point that uh, Angel Reese and her teammates played hard last season and they
Mhm.
still fired the coach and they turned that over. And like we also saw in Chicago last year, Caleb Williams playing a first year under one coach and they fire him. Like, boy, when you bring in a star player as a rookie, not having continuity in from year one to year two, man, like that is a big risk because you are just halting the developmental process. You're taking away continuity, the voices in the room, the people who are guiding your star athletes. So no matter what sport, making a coaching change after year one, like if you're bringing in this person you believe as an organization is going to be the centerpiece, you either need to give that person the guy, the coach you really believe in at the start, or you need to hang on in year two and see if you can get some developmental consistency. I think the Sky really played their cards the wrong way. What's your view?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what the situation is with Kennedy Carter being blacklisted outside the WNBA, but when Kennedy Carter played with Chicago last year, when Courtney Vandersloot was with New York, they were a formidable team. I mean, between her and Angel Reese, they knew how to play together, and Angel and Teresa really knew how to keep Kennedy Carter in check, as far as her temper and her emotions and so on and so forth. I don't know why now with Courtney Vandersloot being out, why they wouldn't go get her. They don't have anything to lose. They can bring her in on a 7-day contract or whatever the case. They have nothing to lose right now. They could bring her in on a 7-day contract or whatever the W's temporary contract,
Yeah.
hardship contract is what they're called, and see if, she can fit into what Tyler Marsh wants to do, both physically and emotionally. And I think that would do a world of good for Angel Reese because Camila Cardoso to me is playing okay, but she's not being used as effectively as she could be as well. And Eric, just like their team continuity, like they're not playing as a team. So, but I do think that if they were to go get Kennedy Carter right now, it might be in the best interest of that franchise, of that city, and for the players on that team.
You know, CC, if you were a general manager, like I'm sure you could use the pay raise. Like that seems like some pretty sound advice to me. We'll see what the Chicago Sky are going to do because right now the sky is falling in Chicago. All right, let's move forward. The most eye-popping result in the WNBA over the past week, everyone would agree. Golden State Valkyries 95, Las Vegas Aces 68. So the Aces got dealt a very bad losing hand, and like that was a shocker. Not that the Valkyries won, of course, but by 27 over a
Yeah.
Becky Hammon coach team, with one of the elite superstars in the game. Let's talk about this one. What's your takeaway from Golden State by 27?
Again, we talked about this last week, and when Kelsey Plum left, Drew Lloyd came in, and Drew Lloyd was not efficient in Seattle the year before. Her numbers, were going down the last year that she played in Seattle, and she didn't want to take accountability for any of that. So now you think her agents and herself are going to a better situation per her podcast that she did. And now she's shooting like 30%. And so when again, and then they have no bench. They have really nobody that can, I mean, you know, the player that went to Alicia Clark is gone. She helped them a lot. Sydney Colson is gone. Um, Kelsey Plum is gone. They had some good players that could help them. And now, the Aces, they're just throwing out a bunch of spades because they're not playing very well. And I don't think that Jewel Lloyd, like I said about Connecticut, Jewel Lloyd is not the flex that the Aces thought it would be. She's not the joker. She's not the wild card that they thought they were getting. And it's showing. So, you might say, oh, well, there are only so many games in. No, they got Asia and they got Jackie Young and they got Chelsea. The other thing I will say about Las Vegas is the only one that seems to like to play defense on that team are Jackie Young and Asia. Drew Lloyd doesn't play defense. Chelsea Gray is known for not playing defense. And so until they decide that they want to get better as a team defensively, teams are going to start picking them apart because they have no bench.
Where do you think do you think there's a place for Kennedy Carter on that roster, or like it just wouldn't be considered given her blacklist status?
I don't think her and Becky Hammon would mesh because
Okay.
Becky lays into her team. So, just like she wouldn't mesh in Minnesota
Okay.
because you got to have thick skin to deal with coaches like Becky or like a Cheryl. It's just like college. Like you have to have a certain type of thick skin to deal with Vic Schaefer, with Gino. It's the same concept, and there are certain coaches that are going to cuss you out. And are you going to be ready for that as a grown woman? Some people, I'm a grown woman, don't talk to me like that. But Becky's just passionate, so is Becky the type of player that knows that she could cuss at one person and not cuss at one person? I don't know. I don't know if she handles each player differently. But no, I don't think Kennedy would be a good fit there.
So here's the bigger follow-up beyond any one specific player. Las Vegas, this is an organization that expects to win championships, and and everyone in the WNBA community, everyone in the industry would agree. The Lynx and the Liberty are by far the two best teams. They are putting up the gold standard. They are the class of the league right now. If you're Las Vegas, like you can't wait very long, right? You can't wait much longer if you continue to see this drift and this lack of commitment to defense. You got to make a blockbuster trade, do you not?
I don't know if they can because of their cap. You know what I mean? And that's always been a problem with Vegas, and that's why they have no bench because of their cap. They would have to get rid of somebody big in order to bring in two players that might be able to help them out. I will say Chelsea Gray, she might be on the block right now, if they were going to trade anybody because they need defensive help. And Chelsea Gray is getting older. She's coming off injury. She played well and unrivaled. The the challenge that I have with Chelsea Gray as a phenomenal player as she is, right? One, I'm defense, so she doesn't play defense, which really irks me because she could be such a great player if she would just play defense. The other thing is, now that she's getting older, she's starting to think that the flashiness matters. Like I got to throw a flashy pass. I got to turn my head away and throw that pass instead of just being fundamentally sound and hitting the players when they're open. So she needs to think about that and think about what's better for the team. Her trying to be flashy all the time and now starting to miss those flashy passes or just being fundamentally sound as she gets older to help her team win.
Really fascinating story about Las Vegas, and also it's also worth underscoring that the Golden State Valkyries, and you said this before the season, you did not think this was going to be the worst team in the WNBA, and they're very like they are validating themselves as a legitimate contender for a back end playoff spot. So another check mark for Cece in her preseason WNBA analysis. Let's talk a little bit more about the Valkyries and what you saw from them. Obviously, Las Vegas, a certain degree of dysfunction, as you've documented, but there's also the other side of the coin. A team has to be good enough to really run it up on a team that's still very talented. So let's talk about the Golden State Valkyries and what you're seeing from this expansion team.
Well, I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder because I think that when they went through the draft, everybody was downplaying them because they didn't draft one American players. They went overseas and they got players in the W overseas. And two, when they did the expansion draft, a lot of people felt like, wow, they didn't do well in the expansion draft. But in my opinion, when you look at this team, here's a Beth Burns quote. You got a bunch of dogs, right? You got a bunch of dogs that feel like they have a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. And then you have a post ex-USC player, Timmy Fabigle, who is a rim runner. She's fast. She likes to get up and down the court. And it fits so well with what the Valkyries want to do because they like to get up and down the court. And if they get up and down the court, they like to shoot transition threes. You know what I mean? And they like to rim run. So they're a fun team to watch and they hustle. They're another one of those teams that don't give up. And yeah, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. Who knows? They might, if they keep playing as well as they are, because they're only going to get better as the season goes on. They're only going to get better. So, I'm excited to continue watching them because, man, Valerie Burton is playing so well right now for them. Valerie Burton, Time, Monique Billings from FUCLA, she's playing really well for them though. So I have to give her props. So they have a good team. I don't know Kayla Thornton, she got 22 points. Kayla Thornton was a dog. She played for New York last year. So, you know, they got her out of the expansion draft. So, and Kate Martin, right? Kate Martin came in, she played well against the Aces. And you knew she was going to play well against the Aces because they put her up in the expansion draft. Now I think Becky Hammond is kind of sorry that she was one of the allowable players to get picked in the expansion draft because Kate Martin, even when she was at Iowa, I liked watching her play sometimes more than Caitlin because of the way she was a dog. So it's my thoughts on the Valkyries.
And that's a really good reminder too about, winning basketball teams. Obviously, you need your aircraft carriers such as Caitlin Clark, but yeah, Kate Martin did a lot of winning things for those Iowa teams. They do not make consecutive national championship games without Kate Martin. So like again, once again, we've said this before, we're going to say it again. Like you need your Derek Fishers, you need your Robert Ories, you need those role players who are not anything close to superstars, but they will play a role. They will do what they need. If option one and option two are taken away, there they are. Third option, they make something happen, essential to winning basketball. All right, so let's move forward on our WNBA check-in with CC Clay. You wrote at your Substack about Arike Ogunbowale and the problems in Dallas with its own superstar. A superstar who can put up the numbers, but not the most important one, and that's W's. The wings are not taking flight. So what's the latest on Arike in Dallas?
I don't know what they're gonna do about that whole situation, but again, Arike is a baller, right? She's clutch. in game moments. But I just think that her efficiency, because she's a volume shooter, her efficiency around that team dynamic is not helping the team. It's not benefiting the team. So Arike, and I think, she has to play the off guard position. So she's in the position that she has to play. I think Arike has to really figure herself out and figure out what she can do more to help this team because as clutch a shooter as she is, a lot of shots that she's taken now are just bad shots. Shots where she could have passed the ball off, but she's shooting when she shouldn't be shooting. She's not passing when she should be passing, or when she's passing, she's making the wrong pass. And I just I'm not concerned with what's going on with Dallas, but I am concerned with Enrique's thought process or accountability process of herself within the whole basketball setting.
How soon do you think within the Dallas organization, I'm not talking so much about the team on the court, but the front office, the brain trust, how soon do you think there's going to be this question asked inside, the war room in terms of, this roster and the future of the organization? How soon does the question be asked? Can Enrique and Paige coexist, or do we really need to kind of shift the gravity to Paige Beckers and find a trade package to ship out Enrique, get some, role players back in return, cheaper too, and reconstruct our rosters solely around Paige Beckers? How soon do you think that conversation is going to occur inside the Dallas Wings organization?
I think by All-Star break, if they haven't already. I mean, that's a hard conversation to have because one, Kurt Miller's the new general manager there, so he just got there. So for him to make a decision saying, "Hey, we got to let Enrique go," is not going to look good on that franchise because Enrique essentially built that franchise coming into Dallas. On the other hand, like I said, you've had too many players that have played alongside Enrique that have left. I mean, I mean, you can go down a list that have left because of the lack of cohesion within Dallas. Now I will say there are some coaching challenges with all these teams that are losing, in that, the coaches and the players need to be held accountable. It's not one or the other, and again, coaching systems matter. So if the system is not working, with Enrique and Paige there that they have in place, you know, maybe they tweak the system before they think about a trade package. I don't know, but it just seems like in some instances, Chris Coklane's is not as prepared as he should be during game scenarios. So, or he doesn't know how to handle personalities, multiple personalities, especially grown women. College is a whole different thing. And me, even being an assistant on a WNBA, excuse me, on a WNBA team, you don't have that head coaching responsibility where you actually have to be the one to hold players accountable for their actions. Now he's in that position, and you're dealing with strong personalities. Enrique has a strong personality. This is her team. If I'm Enrique, I'm like, this is my team. You just got here. This is my team. You know what I mean? So how do you manage that as a coach and as a GM while trying to put this together? But I will say that Dejanay, I was checking out. Dejanay was on a Twitch, who I'm sure a lot of you guys watch if you follow me or follow the WNBA, and she made it a point to say that even though they were only 1-8, that their locker room is solid. Like they don't make the comment, "Oh, we got to go to work today." You know what I mean? It's like they're still full of joy, they're still positive, their locker room is solid. And so that's an important point, when you're thinking about the moves that you have to make with this organization.
Absolutely. All right, let's check in on our Trojans, our pro USC Trojans, Kiki Iriafen. continues to thrive with Washington. And, Washington put it on the Connecticut Sun over the weekend, 104 to 67. That's a 37-point win for the Mystics. Like they just look like a solid team. No, now, no one's going to put them in the top tier of the league, anywhere close to the Liberty and the Lynx, but they look like definitely look like a playoff team, a team that's going to be like
Yeah.
maybe a 5 through 8 seed, somewhere in there, probably higher than 8, like maybe like 5 or 6 might be the where this team ultimately settles, because Kiki Iriafen just so steady. That really strikes me, is that you're not seeing fluctuations. If she's not playing a brilliant game and then having a bad game and then having a brilliant game and then a bad game, it's just steady production. And for any rookie, right, that's got to be an eye-grabbing element of her first month of WNBA basketball.
Yeah, I put a tweet out the other day saying, "Hey, I don't think that Kiki could have went to a better situation in Washington, player wise, system wise, coach wise." Because when I continue to watch Washington play, I see so many things that are alike with what USC did in their offense. Just the way the setups are, just the way the pick and rolls are, just the way the cuts are. So, I mean, I think that it's really, really the system that Washington has really helped Kiki, and I think that she's really starting to feel better. Now, I do want to make a comment. There was some media put out that Kiki had made a comment about she's feeling joy again, playing with the Washington, and then she's feeling joy again playing basketball, with her teammates here in Washington. And I just want to, I think this has to be said because I want to make a point that Kiki goes to Washington, right? She's not going to Washington to be a star. She's not going to Washington to be the big jetliner. She's going to Washington to be a role player. All that pressure is off Kiki right now. She's just going to have fun. Now, if people are trying to say, oh, oh, she wasn't happy at USC, no, that wasn't it. She was very happy at SC. She loved playing with Juju. I think the difference is when she transferred from Stanford to USC, a lot of pressure came with that. Because when she came into USC, she was told she was going to be a go-to. She was told that she was going to be the number two player on the team and that she had to make it happen. That comes with a lot of pressure from outside and from your inner circle and from yourself. And so, and then when you're developing into a new offense that's pro ready and you're really challenged with trying to figure it out because your IQ wasn't like that at Stanford. Let me rephrase that. The things that you had to learn at SC were very different than what you had to learn at Stanford. There comes a lot of pressure with that. So I think pressure really, really affects people in different ways. And again, at Washington, playing with the Mystics now, she has no pressure. None. She can just go out there and play. So, of course, it's going to bring a change of mindset and a change of attitude and a change of how, you reflect on how you feel. So, I just wanted to put that out there for people, thinking the thoughts that everybody else was thinking, that's the difference. So people get an understanding of what she meant when she said that. Now, she might have not meant that, but I'm guessing that's what she meant.
Yeah, I mean, Kiki could have transferred from Stanford to, South Carolina. She could have transferred to UConn. That pressure would have been there. Like, it is not unique to USC. That's the point. Like, she could have transferred to any other place. The fact that she had to learn a new system and have that pressure of, hey, you're expected to deliver a Final Four, which, had Juju not gotten hurt, probably would have.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are clearly far more expectations in her last season at USC, her one season at USC, than there are now with the Mystics. And because of that note you made about the continuity, the similarities in systems, she's not starting from scratch
Yep.
in the WNBA the way Caitlin Clark did with the
Hmm.
Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark needed a month to get up to speed in the W. Lindsey Gottlieb had Kiki ready to just go right into, as you noted, just the ideal landing spot with Washington. I think an interesting follow-up question here, one that our listeners and watchers would want to get some perspective on is, could Kiki have fit in just any WNBA roster? And perhaps is there an example of like another WNBA team? Not the dysfunctional ones. Chicago, Connecticut, like those are just bad dysfunctional organizations right now. We can obviously agree those would have been terrible for Kiki, but maybe like a team that on paper seems to be good, but the fit would have been noticeably different. Maybe Seattle, maybe Vegas. Like how interchangeable? That's really what I'm trying to get at. How interchangeable do you think Kiki's WNBA existence is or could have been? Like as we compare the situation in Washington to another decent or better WNBA team, how much interchangeability do you perceive in terms of comparing Washington to other WNBA situations?
I think it would have been different because one, you got to look at the dynamics, right? When I look at Washington and what she went to in Washington, it's not even just the system, it's the players. When you look at the way Brittany Sykes plays, she plays like she's Juju-esque, right? So it's like they play off of one another. And then you have Sonia Citron who's just can do anything. That system is so perfect for what they do. If they would have, and they're not a heavy 3-point shooting team. If you look at the stats, right? So that system works. They're a mid-range transition team. That's what I like. They're a mid-range. Now they'll shoot the three if it's open, but they're a mid-range transition team, which fits Kiki because she can shoot the mid-range, right? She likes to rim run. She likes to do pick and rolls. Everything that she was taught last year. Now the difference is if she were to go to a team like Atlanta, the Valkyries, LA, right? Those are the three next in line. It wouldn't have worked for her. You know why? Because their systems are based on volume 3-point shooting. So those systems, if you look at Semesco and LA Sparks coach Lynn, they and the Valkyries probably are the team that shoots the most threes in the W. They wouldn't have fit. And with Seattle, she would have had to play behind NECA. They got two other big. They got their freshman star who was recruited number two, who's trying to figure it out. It's just so different. That's why system and fit is so important. But yeah, nah.
I'm really glad you mentioned Sonia Citron because and this feeds into the point you made earlier, the accurate point that Kiki Iriafen is not expected to be the franchise, the savior. She's a number 4 draft pick, but Sonia Citron was a number 3 draft pick. So like that takes away that sense of, oh, you're a top 5 pick. You have to be the gal.
Yeah,
You
and,
have to
and
be the one. Citron being number 3, it completely removes that kind of laser focus from Kiki Iriafen's bat.
and I think Brittany helps with that. Brittany Sykes is such a good leader for them. And that's the other thing. Personnel are so important in the development of rookies. The personnel that you have on your team. Brittany Sykes is the perfect fit for both Citron and Kiki as far as helping them with their development and just you never see Brittany. She's kind of mild. Well, she does get mad every once in a while, but she's kind of mild tempered and she just plays. You could just tell that she loves the game. And the thing about Brittany is she's not considered a superstar, but she really is. She's so undervalued in the W. So I think that Washington team they don't have any pressure on there, and I think that their coach, if you watch the coach Sydney, he's so calm, and normally players take on the attitude of their coaches. He's always calm. He talks to them in a mild tone voice. You never see him all up in rows, and I think that helps, with what they're trying to build there.
All right, we're going to talk about Juju Watkins' foray into coaching in just a bit, but first, there's one last pair of WNBA items I wanted to hit on. Just a couple quick takes. To me, CC, these aren't. We know that the two worst teams in the WNBA are three worst: Dallas, Chicago, and Connecticut, in some order. Those are the three worst teams. So these next two teams, they're not the worst teams, but to me, they're the most confusing ones. Atlanta and Seattle. To me, they're the hardest teams to read in the W with Atlanta. Atlanta loses to the Connecticut Sun, the same Connecticut Sun team that then got buried by 37 by the Mystics. So that's one. And then Seattle, that Las Vegas team that just got dumped by 27 by the Valkyries, they went into Seattle a week ago and beat the Storm. So just Seattle, we talked about Kiki Iriafen being so consistent. Well, Atlanta and Seattle are the opposite of that. They're the ree
Yeah.
just way up, way down, no consistency from one night to the next. Like, if you do not believe in sports betting, you would point to Atlanta and Seattle. Like that, those teams are going to lose you some money. That's why you don't bet on sports. So, Cece, just some quick observations of just why Atlanta and Seattle are so volatile right now in this WNBA season.
Atlanta had been playing at home, so that was their first away game in a while, and I think that affected them. I just think that they went into Connecticut thinking they were going to win and just got beat. I think it's as simple as that. Alicia Gray, that she wasn't as good as she normally is, and she's one of the stars for them, as is Ryan Howard. She's one of their stars as well. And I just think that people look at the standings and they're like, oh, it's Connecticut. Oh, it's Dallas. And it's a mental thing. Just like in college ball, you can't take shit like that for granted, right? You got to come ready to play every game, or else, especially when you're playing away. It doesn't matter who you're playing because any team can get beat on any given day. And so I just think that they came in there with a mental aptitude like this is going to be easy for us. And Connecticut, it was their home. They were at home. They wanted to win a home game really, really bad. And they played well that game and they won.
And
That's
now,
simple.
and Seattle. Let's do
And I'm at a
Seattle.
loss with Seattle. Honestly, I I don't, because that's one of the teams that I said I think they're going to be really good by midseason, and then they just keep disappointing me. Like they have all the players, they have all the pieces to make this work. They can't give the excuse anymore that they're not cohesive, right? Because Drew Lloyd is gone, so now they have players that they can really play together as a team, and they just man, they got to learn how to close out games. That's what I will say. Again, closing out games is such an important piece of the puzzle. And if you're not there to play all four quarters, you're gonna get beat.
Yeah, I once had a deep dish pizza and it had cheese, it had sausage, it had sauce, but there was no oregano and the cheese just didn't have that extra flavor and it just didn't taste very good. It had all the ingredients, but it didn't have like the full flavor that you associate with a piece of pizza. That is the Seattle Storm right now. All right, so now
But
to
before
Juju
before we
Watkins.
before we
Okay.
get to Juju Watkins, I just want to say one more thing about the WNBA, and I want to talk about the stat leaders for a minute. Collier is averaging 25.5 points a game. I mean, and she is just, man, every time I watch her, she's just such a quiet assassin. She doesn't talk. She just goes out there and she performs. So I really love Nafisa and I really love what she's doing for Minnesota as a whole. And I really love what she's doing with Unrivaled. I mean, she has come out and just built her brand, and trying to help women so they don't have to go overseas. So I'm so impressed with Nafisa Collier. And the surprise that when I was reading this, the field goal percentage of Leah Boston, 66.7%. She's leading the W right now. Shout out to her. I still think that she needs to develop a little bit. But around the basket, she's really good. So kudos to her. And then again, Nafisa is leading the W in steals. So that's just, you know, she's just a two-way player. I think in the last game that they played, she got like 5 blocks, and she's not that tall. I think she's 6'3", but she's strong. So yeah, and then Angel Reese is leading in rebounds, but again, Angel Reese gets a lot of her own rebounds. So I look at that stat and like, well, what am I going to say about that? Not too much.
Would we agree that Fee Collier is the clear-cut MVP leader at this point?
She's the clear-cut MVP, and ESPN is stating they put out there that Kiki Iriafen is leading right now for the Rookie of the Year for the WNBA.
And I would imagine Citron is right behind her.
I think it's yeah, Kiki, then Sonia, then or no, it's Kiki, then Paige, then Sonia.
Okay, it's going to be really
That's the
interesting with
race.
two players on the same team being in the top tier of the Rookie of the Year conversation. That's definitely going to be a story to monitor as the season continues.
And the one thing I just looked at my notes of what I wrote, and I wanted to say this. You asked me the question about Kiki fitting in other systems, and I put in my notes right here. Why she fits Washington perfectly is because she thrives in the motion offense that they have. She can defend multiple positions, and the pick and pop and the post versatility that she brings to the team and that game specifically, or that team specifically, is just second to none. So that's why she fits with Washington the way she does. There you go.
Absolutely. All right. Now, Juju Watkins entering the world of coaching. So, this a very fascinating situation here. So, uh, your overview, your reactions to this very unique plot twist in Juju Watkins' basketball life.
So you know what I thought was the greatest thing about that game? The greatest thing is when I was sitting on my couch asking myself, why the hell am I getting this excited over an overtime select game that doesn't really even matter? You know what I mean? Like I actually put out on X, I'm sitting here watching this game like it's a USC UCLA matchup and UCLA better not win. That's how I felt about Juju coaching against Flage. So Flage, this was her third time. She's 0 for 2 against Paige. And then Juju coming out and beating her, just the different coaching styles. And it was so fun and funny to watch Juju's personality come out. And I think the more she gets older and the more that she becomes secure with showing who she is outside the basketball court, the more you're going to see that she's just such a wonderful human being. She's just so humble and so fun and goofy. She's a nerd at heart, you know. But it was fun to watch. But I will say this, and I want to point this out. That team that she coached was a good team. And one, two, three, four, five of those players on that team, and I think six because I think USC is going to go after Jordan Palmer after the way she played. So that means one, two, three, four, well, five. Five players are USC targets right now. And Special K, she's just amazing. She's 5'6". She scored 40 points, 12 assists, 9 rebounds.
Okay,
Now
Special K.
Kalana Smith.
Okay.
Kalana Smith? Kiana Smith. I think it's yeah, Kiana Smith. 40 points, 12 rebounds, or 9 rebounds, 12 assists. She's a 2027 5-star. She's number one, ranked number one. And she's out of Ontario Christian, so she's local. So we got to keep our local babies home, not at UCLA, but at SC. So she was the most valuable player of the game, and she put on a show. And I was like, okay, I see why Juju's coaching these girls, right? They're all USC targets. Sanaya Hall, she's the number one ranked ESPN player for 2026. She's a USC target. you know. Olivia Big O Edwards, she didn't play, but she was a so-called assistant coach with Juju. She's out of Washington. She's a target, a big target for USC. And then you have Taylor Brown. I think she's from Lehigh, so where K9 came from. She scored 12 points and get this, had 22 rebounds. She is a USC target. So for those, I think somebody left me a message. I don't know if it was on my YouTube or Twitter or whatever it was, asking me for the recruiting. Well, these aren't all the targets that USC is going after. I know some of the other ones, but I just wanted to put these out there because they all played in the overtime select game and they were all coached by Juju. And then at the end of the game, when she had to sign the camera, she signed it Team GOAT. And
Mm.
so, I'm excited for the future because players love being around Juju, you know? And so if we can get Special K, if we can get Sanaya, if we can get Olivia, man, not to say that and we have other people that like we're recruiting others too that didn't play in this game. I want to make that clear. There are others on the board, but I'm specifically talking about the players on Juju's team that we're recruiting right now. Not on the other team, because there are a couple on the other team that we're recruiting as well, but on Juju's team. That's who we're going after.
I am sure that at your YouTube channel and your Substack, which we're going to promote shortly, you'll have something in the works on these juicy recruiting topics and all the angles flowing from that. So we'll get to your YouTube and your Substack in a minute, but you also wanted to include in this show just kind of a USC offseason roster reset and where you think the Trojans stand and just the kind of the notes that you've been taking on, how the pieces of the puzzle are coming together for USC women's basketball heading into next season.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, that the recruits are in, they're, or not the recruits, the transfers are on campus. Cara Dunn's here, London Jones is here, Mendez is here, and Milton got here today. So they're all four on campus. Jazzy's here, but Jazzy's leaving because she's going to play for the USA Under 19 team. And Kennedy, of course, is here, but she's going to the USA AmeriCup cap. So I'm just happy that everybody's here. Man, I'm excited. The more I think about this team, the more excited I get with the future of what we're going to be able to do with this team as far as athletically. And I think people are going to be surprised. I think this team is ready to work, and I think they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder, like the Valkyries. You know, and I think that they're gonna show some things.
And obviously, this is June. The season is so many months away that, it's hard to just get into the particulars of everything. But really, for at this stage, several months away from the start of the season, I think to me that the main question is already cleared, to me, and that is just can Juju get healthy and get back with enough time before the NCAA tournament for the roster to blend together. Now, obviously, the roster will blend together without Juju probably for several weeks, but just can Juju arrive so that there's enough time for like everyone to kind of keep what they're great at, and then for Juju to blend in without having an overly disruptive effect. And just is there going to be enough time between the Juju return point and March Madness? If there is, this team has a national championship ceiling. So to me, that really is the question for this team coming up.
Here's my thoughts on that. And I've gone back and forth with people on this and, had this discussion on Juju. Can she come back in January? The timeline that would make sense is if she comes back in January because that would give her January, February, March. However, Paige Becker sat out a whole year and then Paige Becker stayed for 2 additional years at Connecticut. And in her last year, she got a national championship. Now, I think Lindsay is setting up this team the same way. So if Juju
Hmm.
sits out the entire year, she's got her roster set for the next 2 years. So if Juju stays 2 years, that second year, if they don't win it, her first year back, that they'll definitely win a national championship that second year because everybody at UConn will be gone except for Sarah Strong. And they'll be having to bring in young freshmen, whereas USC will be seasoned. Does it make sense for Juju? I think a lot of things depend on the CBA, for the WNBA, what that pay raise is going to look like. If she decides to play next season and start in January, that gives her 1 more year. What team would she likely go to? Because I think Juju, the ultimate goal is to be in LA.
Yeah.
Regardless, the WNBA has to make that happen in order for the WNBA to grow.
Hmm.
And Juju Watkins being the biggest star that's going to come out in the next 2 years, she has to be in LA. So how's that going to happen? So I don't think, and then two, with revenue share right now being approved in college and
Hmm.
NIL being two separate entities, so you can make money on both sides.
Hmm.
She'll still make more money in college, even if she leaves
Yes.
and her NIL turns to sponsorships.
Yes.
She still will make more money if she stays 2 years at USC because of revenue share and because of NIL.
That's right. Big
So
point.
she doesn't, you know what I mean? So if she sits out, it would be advantageous to her because then she comes out and she can come back a lot stronger. But Juju, how competitive she is during the game, one of the things that they highlighted that she said during the game was somebody made a good play on her team and she was like, I love basketball. I love basketball so much. You know what I mean? And just to hear her say that, it's like, oh my God, Juju, you're just such a blessing to this game. Can we keep her at USC for 2 years or will she get out on the court in January? Who knows? But my instincts are telling me that she sits out the year for to benefit the USC program and to benefit her her brand. It just makes sense to be at SC the next 2 years, depending on the CBA and if the W can get her to LA. That's my thoughts on that. And I will add one more thing. Season two of On the Rise was confirmed. So there is a season two of On the Rise, Juju Watkins docuseries. And I will tell you,
On Peacock.
huh? On
On
Peacock.
Peacock.
And I will tell you, I don't know when it's coming out, but when you think about Juju's brand, this is a huge point that I'm trying to make. On the Rise, there has been no other college female athlete. If I'm wrong, please put it in the notes or correct me. But there has been no other college female athlete that has had a continuous docuseries on TV. Maybe there's an athlete that does a 3-part series or even a 1-part hour documentary like Aaliyah Gales did. She had a 1 hour documentary on 60 Minutes or 30 for 30, one of those. But there's been no other athlete that has had a docu series, college athlete,
Yeah.
female, like Juju. So when you're talking about USC, the brand, the community, it has helped her as far as her growth as well, man. So kudos to Juju and her team and USC staff for just understanding the bright light that she is and how big of a platform that she can be in showing not just little black girls and not just little black boys, but all little girls of every shade and every color and every disability that they can do and achieve whatever they want to. And she is a true testament of just being that person that lights everybody up, lights everybody's candle.
It's the song that we sang and were taught as little kids, right? I'm gonna let it shine. Put it under a bushel? No. I'm gonna
Yeah.
let it shine. Letting Juju Watkins light shine. That's a lovely note as we wind down our show. So Cece, what do you have at your Substack? What do you have at YouTube? Like you're just keeping the hits coming. So tell the audience what you have lined up next as CC Clay's YouTube USC basketball channel rolls on.
Yeah, I got some good stuff coming up on the Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball podcast channel when I have guests that are coming on, and I do not like to name the guest until the podcast is completed, but I do have two guests confirmed that I will be talking with on the Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball podcast. Well, really three, so I'm excited about all three of those interviews. For Substack, I am writing a story about the NIL and the new revenue share, the house settlement, because some people think that they're the same and they're not. They're two separate entities, and so I'm breaking it down in a Substack story for everybody to read. And then I have Truth in the Trenches, with Camille Williams, which is a great podcast where we talk about unconventional things that people don't want to discuss. Some could say that it's controversy. Some can like our takes. Some people don't, but it's truth in the trenches. So I have that podcast under the Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball umbrella. And then we have you and I, Matt, and we're going to get to I know we've been saying it, but we are going to get to the Big Ten countdown. I've just been busy. I had a wedding on Saturday and I couldn't, we were going to do it Saturday and I couldn't. So.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So the next time we talk about it, we'll talk about having already put a show in the can. That'd be the
Yeah.
easiest thing
Oh, and
for us
the
to
other
do. But
thing,
it's
yeah,
coming. It's coming.
I, I forgot. I am gonna do a Kennedy film breakdown. So that's coming too. I think everybody wants to see a Kennedy film breakdown, so I am. That's in the works as well. So yeah, man, it's got a lot going on.
Yeah, well, there's really no off season for CC Clay on her YouTube channel and at her Substack. So please like, subscribe, share, get the notification reminder for CC's YouTube shows, subscribe to her Substack. Plenty for you to enjoy in the off season. All right, CC, thanks for joining us for our WNBA show, and we'll do this again next week.
Hey, fight on.